Okay, we are going to make a start of it. Thank you everyone for showing up at this talk on a Tuesday afternoon in the middle of the work week. We are grateful that you're here. Hopefully, you will get one or two insights about what we're going to talk about. Our topic today is balancing your Catholic marriage and career. To be a bit valid, I think we need to introduce ourselves a little bit. We are Kenneth and Sulin Koh. We've been married for 21 years. So this is our personal take on this topic here. We've got one daughter. She's 14 years old. That's a picture of our family. I think that was last Christmas, right after we adopted that dog of ours. So we live with my parents as well. So it's a fairly big family who live together. I work as a forensic psychiatrist. I've held the same kind of job for a couple of decades already. And Sue will introduce her work in a while. We're going to tell you also that aside from our professional work, we also do a fair bit of work for the church as well. So we are Marriage Encounter presenters. We've been presenting since 2008. And we do average about one weekend a year. Unfortunately, COVID slowed ME down a bit, but we're back and we just presented recently. We also present for Couple Mentor Journey, and we're also involved in the church choir. And because that took a hit due to COVID, we're now the check-in volunteers.
Okay, so I'm Sulin. Okay, so I work part-time. So Ken is a full-time worker, and I do part-time. I work for a special needs school, so I go in for half of the week. Yeah. So we're happy to be here today, just to share a bit of our lives. So we hope you enjoy the session that we have. Okay, all right, we can start. Oh yeah, I must say we're not professional speakers, so we have our notes, and we'll just try our best not to read too much and to look at you as we share. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so Ken has already introduced, so we'll dive into our sharing today, which is on balancing marriage and career. Okay, so we know that many stresses, I believe, face couples these days. And what I have here probably is a little tip only of many more factors, that happen in a marriage. So you definitely know for work, the demands are quite a lot. You have to actually keep on top of your work responsibilities and prioritize your work over time, with spouse, with family. And the schedules are really busy. You have to juggle, your work, your kids. If you have young kids, it can be a lot of work to say, who does what, keeping the home neat. I see my brother, he has 4 kids and they run amok, and he's always getting very highly stressed the moment things are out of place in the house. So I know for you, young kids, it can be very stressful. And of course, with kids come the parenting roles. Who takes what? Who's responsible for what? And that also changes your dynamic. In the past was, darling, now it's mommy or daddy, can you do this or can you do that? And also with the children these days, it's a lot of emphasis on academics. So remember, we had to go and learn how to do maths. I had to do maths and how to draw models, and that was stressful enough for me. Okay, and of course with this pandemic, we realized that there are a lot of real stresses for couples in terms of getting the job tied down. Do you actually have a job to take care of your family's needs? Work from home, flip side is that you see too much of your other half. And the people saying, if you can live with the person next to you and you get through it, maybe it's a sign that you can retire with that person. Otherwise, you keep seeing in too close comfort also, it is too much sometimes, okay, for work from home. Then we have the culture of long work hours. So we have friends also who find that with the laptop being at home, it's easier to just switch mode. Dinner, we go back to the laptop. And they find it actually more stressful. So the blurred boundaries will come into play. How do we divide time for our spouse and the work that needs to be done and the children need to put to bed? So it impinges. And the last thing we put there was tech connectedness. We know, right? We have our device. Sometimes it's just so easy to do a check on an email or a message. And the person checking probably doesn't feel as much as the person seeing the person checking. I feel, are you present? Are you connected? So it's really hard to unplug sometimes. So all of these things have a play into our spousal relationship. So we realized that, okay, next slide. Okay, it's like this mummy bird. I'm not sure you can see. Baby birds are all clamoring, She wants something, and we have to find a way to juggle our family's needs, our spouse, carving out time, enough rest, sleep, recreation, to do your own, activities, and work. So it really comes down to, the next click, which one do you feed first? Which one do you see to first? It can be a hard thing to decide. And sometimes we can't have everything. Something we have to give way. That's also the issues that we face. All right, so next slide. So we know that there are many tips out there on how to balance marriage and career. Most of them might have a secular slant to them, which means they might portray marriage and career and work as opposing forces. But today we want to try to see, from a Catholic perspective, is there another way that perhaps we can find that balance that God might want us to consider? So if we can find that balance, between our work and our marriage, that's one way we can honor the vows we took on our wedding day, for better, for worse. That's a way we can honor what we promised each other. All right, so we have a few slides here, which we saw on this document called the Ducat. I'm not sure if you heard of it. It's a document actually launched about 5 years ago. Actually, it's for youth on how to apply and live the social teachings of our Catholic Church. But it ended up being a very practical source of what to do, how to do, how to live your life according to what the Church asked us. So we found some little nuggets there about work. And we go through to them what it says about work today, and how we can apply it. Okay, so we have 3 sections we actually picked out. The first is, what does it mean for a human being to work? So it says there, a summary, that through work, man develops his inclinations and abilities and participates in economic, societal, and cultural development, right? And work plays a major role in God's plan. So sometimes I used to think maybe no work is really good. I can just, enjoy what's it like to not work. But there is a role that God wants of us when we use the talents He's given us. All right, so it plays a role. And I like this line, just doing simple tasks well unites a person with Jesus, who was a worker himself. So it makes me sometimes also feel that the small things I do at home might not be big things, but if I do it well and with love, that already unites me more to Jesus. All right. So the next section is there an obligation to work? All right. So the first statement, let's see. So when human beings pursue the occupation, it is not just a matter of being able to earn their own living, because we know it's important. We have to, put food on the table, look after the children's physical, emotional, spiritual, all the needs. Okay, but it's not just a matter of that. Through work, human beings have the privilege of contributing something to the positive development of the world. So when I heard that, I said, wow, there's more to just the money I earn going back to the family. It ripples further beyond just me and my little family. Okay, next one. And the third section we saw was how our work and occupational success related to the real goal of human life. Okay, so I like this line, so short but so true. Work is part of life, but it's not life. I think a lot of us, me included, I define myself by what I do. So when I first started doing part-time work, I also felt my own self-worth questioned, and I went through all my education, and then suddenly I dropped all of it and I do part-time. Am I holding my self-worth up? All right, so it's part of life but not life. And what is the goal of human life? It is not to pile up money or to earn a reputation, but to attain eternal life with God through prayer, worship, and active love of neighbor. So that was also quite liberating when I realized that there's a bigger purpose. And the last line, when work becomes an end to itself and obscures the real goal of our human existence, then its importance has been exaggerated. So it's a kind of a struggle because we feel we have to be responsible, I got to do it well, really well, to be my worth. But if I do too much of it, also that I may be exaggerating the work aspect itself. So therefore, what we saw is that the church talks that there is value, there's dignity in work, and we definitely have to find that balance between work and marriage. So our question is, then how can our work help to bring us as spouses closer as one? And can our work actually serve our marriage instead of the other way around? Right? So Ken will continue the next section.
So we're going to divide the rest of the talk into three areas, and these are the three topics that we're going to talk about. Our gifts and our work, couple, work and change, and then conflict, compromise, and harmonization. So our sharings, as we said, are from our own personal experience, and there's no one-size-fits-all kind of approach, as everyone and every couple will have your own unique preferences and life situations. Nonetheless, we hope that you do take away something from this session that we're going to present to you. So we're going to leap into our gifts and our work. So, of course, everybody has your own set of gifts. Many of us feel, oh, actually, I don't really have very many gifts, but that is not true. We all have our set of gifts, and your gifts can be applied to the different jobs. It is important, therefore, that we get to know ourselves, and it is useful to know what our unique talents are and which talents can fit into our work and therefore make us happy and contented. Your gift may not actually directly impact upon your work. So for instance, if I'm a great at mathematics, that's my gift, I'm a great mathematician. Not all of us are so lucky to have that sort of fit. But for instance, if you had the gift of, say, humor, that will contribute to your work environment. It will contribute towards the good feelings that you and your colleagues will establish with one another. It makes the work lighter and the work environment a more fun place. So it's important, therefore, that if we do have gifts, then we must use the gifts, and nobody likes a candle to put it under a bushel, right? So if you use your gifts nicely and well, it then prevents drudgery from setting into your workplace, and you will get some form of contentment in your work. So let's take a look at what Scripture actually says. And this is from the first letter to the Corinthians, and I'm just going to read it out for you. Maybe you can pay attention to the parts that we've underlined for you. There are many different gifts, but it is always the same Spirit. There are many different ways of serving, but it is always the same Lord. There are many different forms of activity, but in everybody, it is the same God who is at work in them all. The particular manifestation of the Spirit granted to each one is to be used for the general good. To one is given from the Spirit the gift of utterance expressing wisdom, to another the gift of utterance expressing knowledge in accordance with the same Spirit, to another faith from the same Spirit, and to another the gifts of healing through this one Spirit. To another the working of miracles, to another prophecy, to another the power of distinguishing spirits, to one the gift of different tongues, and to another the interpretation of tongues. But at work in all these is one and the same Spirit, distributing them at will to each individual. So clearly, I think you can see that the gifts are varied, they are different, but they are given to you by the Holy Spirit. And they are to be used for your work and for your activity, right? So they're not meant to be hidden. Remember that work doesn't just refer to paid work. Work can be, as a homemaker, that also is important form of work, because that builds up the kingdom of God. It builds up the little home church that you have brought out. So being a homemaker will allow you to contribute to the welfare and the life of the family, and the giving. It is really a giving of yourself. So these are my gifts. I'm going to share that I'm analytical. I'm good at teasing apart logically. I look at how details fit into the big picture and how the big picture fits into the details. So this helps in my role as a forensic psychiatrist, where a lot of my work involves assessing patients or assessing people who are remanded to see if they have a mental illness and whether their mental illness contributed to their offending. Of course, you do realize that in this line of work, I also see a lot of people who malinger and fake the illnesses. So that's where my gifts come in. And I can determine if they are telling the truth or the whole truth or part of the truth or none of the truth, right? In the extreme areas of my work in forensic psychiatry, I also do have to assess terrible cases. These will involve things like paternal rapes, murders, and drug traffickers. I'm fully aware that I need to be impartial in this work, and I've learned how to cultivate that impartiality. I do not allow my emotions to sway my judgments, even as I'm aware that somebody's life may be at stake in what I say in my report. I also have another role as a general psychiatrist, and I use my gifts of confidence, knowledge, and experience to educate patients as to the need for treatment and to reassure them that they are indeed treatable. So there is a hard part of me, but there's also a soft part of me.
Okay, so I'll share my gifts. So we say work hazard. I hope that Ken doesn't bring home the part about whether I'm lying or not and use his work skills to come back to the wife. Okay. So he shared his gifts. So I'll share the gifts I'm aware of for myself. So I'm very much a people person. So I enjoy being with people, and I enjoy work that's given me fulfillment to help others, to nurture them, which is why I think my whole life, I've always been in education. Yeah, it's always education sector. So I can impact, the lives of children and families. So I value very much building relationships, and I like to connect with people with warmth and care. So I usually rely on my intuition and my feelings, and I'm quite empathic to those around me. Working with others, I prefer to work as a team. So you can see, sometimes Ken prefers to work, solo. For me, it's collaboration. It's because I find that I like to bounce ideas, you get, more creative thoughts, and to think out of the box. I know I can be also detailed, organized. Good and no good, always flip side. So detailed organized means that I can help people around me make things a bit easier. So in my role, I'm a curriculum developer for the students in the special school. I have the gift of being meticulous, whatever I need to do for their curriculum, and I can also help my teammates, be more student-centric in their approaches. Okay, so that's the first part, knowing our own gifts. So I continue. The next area we look about is, after we know our gifts, how can our own gifts help in our spouse's work? Sounds a bit strange, right? How can our gifts help our spouse? Well, it's possible. And you might find that nowadays, especially as you are working at home, I have a newfound respect for seeing Ken work at home because I hear him take calls, I see him doing things. In the past, the office is just your office, you're doing work. So he might see me and I will see him now doing work at home, and you appreciate more of what your spouse does. So you can write next to each other, and you can still be polar opposites in your approach, but you can still find something within you to help or complement your spouse. For example, you can serve as your spouse's confidant. You can advise or bounce ideas off each other. So if the hubby is very good at computer skills or analytical skills, he might help the wife to solve certain problems. Likewise, if the wife is really very creative or people person, she can also put that gift to work by helping the husband to think outside the box, to consider perspectives. So that's how our gifts can actually rub off on our spouse. Now, so the goal is to try and uncover what these overlaps are. And if we can find these overlaps in our gifts and how they can help our spouse, then we can actually build intimacy. That's what we always want, right? Intimacy between our better half. Because you give each other the glimpse of your world at work and find ways to be more involved in each other's lives. Okay, so Ken will share about his experience.
So as a man, I am hard-headed and unpolished. That's a confession here, especially when it comes to difficult bosses or difficult colleagues. Sue, with her congenial personality, will help to cool me down. Then she'll say, no, look at the other person's side. I'm sure they had a reason to say this. And she'll offer plausible alternatives to why that person acted in that way or shot that nasty email to me in that manner, then she helps me to widen my perspectives at hand. So she tempers my fire. She helps me to cool down, to take a breather before I shoot off an email that I will later regret, especially if it's to my boss.
Okay, so how does Ken help me, okay, in using his gifts? So maybe being a very people person, I get quite emotional. You know, the work stresses, you like to overthink about it, and so it eats and plays on my mind. So he will come by giving a very objective and very balanced perspective. So it's almost like you see the forest, you can't differentiate what's what. So when he hears me, he will try to say, okay, now what is the real issue here? So when he's calm and he gives me clear insight, it actually helps me to process what I can or cannot control. And then that also helps me to better manage my expectations. Okay, so it's how our gifts help each other. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just going to go off tangent a little bit, okay? We're just going to go away from the forest and, yeah. Okay, but this is still on the topic of our gifts and work. The whole goal of marriage really is to forge unity between you and your spouse, right? And one of the ways to forge unity is by affirming each other. We usually tend to look at ourselves in a negative light, or we discount the good qualities or gifts that we have. So when we affirm our spouses, we build up their self-esteem. It lifts them up and it helps them to make them feel better about themselves. The power of affirmation is not just limited to the affirmer as only, but it also, the power of affirmation doesn't just affect the person who is being affirmed, but it also affects the person who gives the affirmation. In that way that I look at my spouse and I say that, you know, you have done a good thing, and that changes my thinking about my spouse, and I see her in a better light as well. So that certainly does help both the affirmer as well as the affirmed person. There is research done on this, and this is research by Dr. John Gottman. He says that for every it takes 5 positive affirmations to undo 1 negative interaction. So it is definitely important for you to affirm your spouse. Affirm even the regular and the routine. It could be as simple as complimenting your wife's cooking, or that she was able to juggle work and family just for today. Or you could affirm your husband that he was able to pull off a difficult deal at work.
Okay, so we'll just share our own experiences. So we've learned a couple of years ago about this tool called Daily Appreciation Tool. Yeah, so what is it? It's a simple practice of sharing at least once a day your answer to the statement. The statement is, one thing I have appreciated about you today is ... That's just the question. You just say, one thing I have appreciated about you today is, and then you fill the blanks with the quality you saw in your spouse, the quality that impacted you. Okay, I know this is not very Asian. It is easier to nitpick than not. So especially in our earlier years of marriage, I always tended to look at what Ken didn't do. Yeah, I was quite critical and nitpicking. And when I learned about this tool of daily appreciation, then I realized I was becoming a bit more conscious to affirm him. A bit unnatural at first, but I realized that I'm actually searching, like digging for the things that he's doing on a small basis, such as maybe even seeing to household chores, yeah, helping our daughter with her schoolwork. Now she's a teen. She seems to want daddy more than mommy. Primary school was mommy. I have no idea why. So I happily let him, have that, and you're happy to take it, right? Okay, okay. No choice, yeah. Okay, happy to take, yeah. So helping her, working hard, even just coming home from work and I say, I appreciate you for working hard for us. I think he doesn't expect it. Or when he was patient or cool in handling a difficult situation. So we talked about it, right? The benefits, actually, when you affirm or appreciate your spouse, what happens is that he or she knows why or what he did to make us feel loved. We can't read my mind. But when I just bring that up, he knows what made me feel loved. And in a way, he probably would tend to do it more often. You get it? Yeah? Because we affirm that this meant something, it's a higher chance that they will know how to love us better and be successful, rather than do the things that don't really impact us. Yeah? All right.
So we're not teaching you to be manipulative and manipulate your spouse into doing things for you. Huh? Okay, so I'm sure you all have heard of this term, love tank, right? You know, your car is a petrol tank, but we all have, as human beings, love tanks. And this is a tank that your spouse helps to fill up with love for you, okay? And it is, of course, important that you keep filling up each other's love tanks. As with any marital relationship, right, this will go through periods of stress and arguments. There are times when the love tank will become depleted. So the more you fill it up, of course, the more reserves you have, right, so to speak. And it's not just in the marital relationship that benefits when you have your love tank filled up and you have a compliment from your spouse. So for instance, if you had a bad day at work, right, your supervisor's gone off on you, then when you come home, you feel, you hear a nice word or two from your spouse because she has done the daily appreciation tool and affirmed you for your work. That will make you feel better about your work, isn't it? And then your thoughts and your feelings about your work will also improve. So this exercise of daily appreciation will feel a bit weird at first, because it's almost like every day I have to, finish this sentence. It kind of seems like rote, sort of parroting out. We as Asians certainly are not used to hearing, appreciation being doled out on us, especially for things that, we do as duty. But, with time, you learn to like it and you learn to almost, in a sense, expect it and hope that your spouse does this for you, right? Okay. So
Okay, so you have your little booklets. We have a first short activity for you, which is actually the first question. You want to just press the slide first? Huh? Yeah, just one click, yeah. So it's a sharing question for yourself to reflect on what we talked about. So what are the gifts that I bring to my work? So you think for yourself. And the second question is, how can I use my gifts to help my spouse in his or her work? Okay, so we just give you a couple of minutes to reflect first on yourself, and then can you use those in any way to help your spouse in their work? Okay. Okay, so we hope you had some time to reflect. If your spouse is here, you can share, later on, or if you're already done. Okay, so we went to the first part earlier, the first consideration, and now we come to the second one, which is couple, work, and change. Right, okay, so let's see the next slide. So we talk about changing situations must lead to attitude change. So we talk about what is a changing situation. So it's about our attitudes towards work. So usually before marriage, attitudes that we have are quite simple. No kids yet, just try to do your best, go as far as you can, climb up the social ladder and get the job you want, the dream job, your qualifications, and our sense of self-worth is usually tied very much closely to that, what we do. And this gives us financial independence. In a way, it also feeds our ego. We feel good, we've achieved, we've accomplished this. So after marriage, this doesn't really change drastically, early years, because both husband and wife are still pretty much focused on building their careers, working towards maybe the next promotion or the next raise. But change will come when the children arrive, and then priorities need to be relooked. Because sometimes you might find again now, who's going to take care and the responsibility to change? At this point in time, most of the time, not all, okay, the wife is the one that perhaps has to make the consideration, should she give up her career or put it on hold so that she can focus on child minding. But saying that too, we also have friends who is the other way around, so it's the husbands who do it. Basically, whoever it is still a key decision on whether one or both spouses continue with work. It depends really on the jobs that they have, each spouse's earning capability, the career prospects, even energy level. Some people may not want to stay home and run around, energy levels, amount of gratification you get from your work, and perhaps also wanting to know, do you want to have a more time and involvement in your child's life? Okay, so our personal sharing, we tried a really long time to have a child. So our daughter today turns 14. She's 14 years old today. Happy, running around with us. We told her after this talk, we'll see you. Okay. So when we found out we were expecting her, we were really elated. Oh, sorry. Okay. Okay, elated. And I wanted the option, if possible, to be present for her growing up years. Okay, so at that time, my workplace had no such option. So I tried to, ask my principal, possible to have it. And she was very kind. I think she knew our struggles for 7 years not having a child. So she was open to explore, and she did give this opportunity. However, when the opportunity came, I wasn't sure how to broach it to Ken, because it meant that he has to shoulder more of it. We still had our house mortgage, we had our insurances, our expenses. So all that meant that he had to take a bit more of the stress and shoulder it. I also wonder how he might view me, because as I completed all my studies, I find that my self-worth is tied to what I do. By taking a step back, does that make me view myself any different? Yeah. However, we discussed about it, and the more we discussed, I realized that actually he was on the same page, where he preferred me to be at home because my in-laws are a bit more older, so he didn't want to also text them to look after Dawn. So I was relieved and grateful that at least Ken and I were on the same page about this. Yeah.
So fortunately, I am blessed with a job that has a reasonably good pay, and I could support our family's financial needs when Sue and I decided that she would go part-time. We're also fortunate that I'm an only child, and as I said, we live with my parents who were 14 years younger then and could help us with the baby then. We also had a great domestic worker back then, which meant that we already had a village at home to help raise the child. But also, not only did Sue want to be present all the time, for our daughter, but I also wanted to be, as present as I could as a father and as a husband. And that meant that I had to make some decisions in regard to my work situation. Now that I was shouldering most of the financial load, it just meant that it was more important that my career was on track and that I did earn well for my families. But yet there was this conflict that I wanted to work a bit less as well. So that made me have to take certain risks as well. Luckily, at that time, my bosses were also a bit understanding, but it meant for me that I made a decision that I'm not going to stay back after work, to show face that I'm working late. I wouldn't be staying back to pretend to finish that report. I wouldn't be hanging out with my friends after work, going out for drinks with them, which also meant that then I would look like, potentially look like the skiver or someone who's like not fun, right? And that may cause some stress in my workplace. But those were the decisions that we made, and we stuck with it. And well, luckily we've come out nicely on the other side of it. Right. So again, while we share this, of course, again, I say it's not everybody's life situation that's like this, and everyone has to make their own decisions as to what is best for them. But it is a decision that must be made as a couple, and it must be made with a lot of discussion, and certainly with a lot of prayer, which is what we did, right? So now the question we put forth to you is, at this particular point of your marriage, if you are married, or at this particular point in your life, if you're not married, then how much do you chase, right? And we're going to ask you to open your workbooks again to look at the first circle, to ask you how much of the 5 C's should you want to chase, or how much of the 5 C's are important to you at this point in your life and your marriage, right? Career, cash, car, condo, country club, right? These are the typical 5 C's that we hear of. Maybe it's a bit our time, but yes, I'm sure it appeals to couples nowadays as well, right? So we ask you to look at this exercise and to answer this for yourself. We're going to hand out little crayons to you in case you want to regress a little bit, and you can have fun coloring the wheel in. And then you sort of, if you're here with your spouse, then have a short discussion with your spouse. Do you both agree about these 5 C's that the other person has chosen? It will not be the same because, as I said, one may be working, one is not working, but do you all agree on the other, each of your 5 C's wheels, right? Okay, so we're going to go let you have a few minutes to do the exercise now. Are you okay? Can we carry on? I know some of you are very intently coloring, because I think you want to enter the Angelical Art Awards for 2022, is it? Okay, let's just push on, okay? So, of course, this section is called couple and change, right? So we need to talk about change. So if the domestic situation changes and one spouse doesn't change, right, or both don't change your attitude towards work, then there's a likely possibility that friction will happen because work has come to define that person, and work may even become that person's master. The work environment now becomes, almost like the home environment. The home environment becomes part of the work environment. They become blurred and they become joined. And what happens when this happens is that the kids may become another problem that needs to be solved. The kids are yet another work project that needs to be managed.
Okay, so we like this picture. The picture says 1,000 words. Okay, so you see the frogs in a pot, and the pot is hot. So they say apparently if you gradually raise the temperature of the water, the frogs do not even realize that they're being boiled. I think for us, we will realize, we will realize. We hope our skin can, but apparently frogs don't even realize. So for us, we may be in a similar situation where we do not recognize the signs or respond quickly enough if there are changes. What this means is that we allow old attitudes and assumptions to persist when they actually may be detrimental to our spousal and family relationship. Okay, so we actually know of couple friends who struggle in this area, where the wife, she desires greater involvement from her husband, but he's pretty content to just relegate the role or the parenting role to the wife because she knows the children better, or you're home more with them, so you take charge. What happens is that urgent work deadlines will also take precedence over family priorities. Sometimes even simple chores such as household maintenance chores might be left undone for a longer time than planned. So if you think, if simple chores can be left undone, it may be that more important matters, such as even carving out date nights with your spouse or spending time with your child, might be left undone too, because the work is more important. So we hope and we need to be cleverer than the frogs and ask ourselves, are we being consumed more from our work priorities or our family priorities? Yeah.
Okay, sometimes and I guess this is the case with life in general, right? That you sometimes do reach maintenance mode. Your careers have reached a certain steady state already. You're in a fairly high position. The kids are old enough to look after themselves. No more diapers need to be changed. And you reach a steady state, sort of like cruising on the Autobahn. And that's not always the best situation in your marriage. That's not always good. Because with that also comes a bit of distance in your marital relationships. And then conflicts start creeping in. And the worst part is that a lot of married couples then realize or start to think that, yeah, it is like this. This is the way that marriage should be. It is normal that the romance dies, that the love comes down, and there are arguments frequently, right? We get stuck in the status quo, and sometimes also the kids then become the first priority, and it is more important to service the kids' needs with sending them to tuition, to making sure that all their work is done. We become mommy and daddy instead of darling and honey, right? And when you start calling your spouse, mommy, come here, mommy, have you done this? Then that's not very good because she's not my mummy, right? So we don't look into servicing our marriage. You know, when you have a car, right, or you have a motorbike, you need to service it regularly. We send our kids for tuition, and that is, in a sense, servicing their academic, their brains. But we don't often think about servicing our marriages, and that's not a very good thing, because you do realize also that when you regularly service your car or your marriage, you know, you spend a little bit of money, you know, once, a small amount of money here and there. But when things break down badly, if your car breaks down on the expressway, for instance, that's going to take a huge amount of money to repair. And similarly with your marriage as well, if you don't service it regularly, then your marriage breaks down, and that can be catastrophic. Okay, so as I said, you know, your 30s or 40s already are stable, their academics is all farmed out to tutors, then you get, you know, into this rut, and you begin to say, yeah lah, but it's like this, what? It's meant to be like this. You know, then that's not good. And then we begin to apportion duties to each other. The kids are your responsibility. So anything to do with the kids, you handle, I don't handle at all. Anything to do with repairs, and it's all up to me, she doesn't get involved as well, right? Yeah. So what I'm saying really, that after saying this, is that it is important that you then be the change in your relationship. We talked about bad change earlier, now you're static. You need to then generate change in your relationship. You need to create freshness and excitement in your lives. So last year, in the COVID pandemic, you know, we were all feeling a bit stifled because, you know, even I had to work from home many days of the week. So then Sue subscribed us to an online watercolor painting course. And all three of us actually sat down to learn the basics of watercolor painting. So wet on dry techniques, wet on wet techniques, using water spray, using salt, how to dilute paints, how to use inks on top of watercolors. You know, and I seriously took it off. It took off with me massively. And even up to today, I still continue painting. So these are a few of the things that I've painted in the last 1 year. However, it did not take off with Sue, and it did not take off with our daughter. They were like, oh, no, I don't want to do watercolor. So, you know, we tried to engender the change in all three of us as a family, but it didn't. But what it did is that it sparked off a different kind of change in Sue and a different kind of change in Dawn. So she didn't want to do watercolor with Daddy because, you know, maybe it's, you know, not cool to do what your old fuddy-duddy father likes to do. So she did something else. She took up acrylic painting, and she, you know, we went to the shop to buy small pieces of acrylic paint, well, small piece of acrylic plastic, and those are the two at the end that she painted. So that was a Father's Day gift to me this year. It's acrylic paints on acrylic plastic. And the change that took place in Sue was that she decided that she would go for the Acts of the Apostles online course, and then she started doing journaling as well. So yes, you know, we tried to get everyone together, but it didn't really work. But we still tried to get everyone together in the sense that, right, now I can do my watercolor, she can do her journaling, and Dawn can do her painting, but we tried to do it together on the dining table. We try to fix it so that the planets will align. We all come together and do it. Doesn't happen very often, but we still try, right? Because the whole point is that it's about trying. It's not about, you know, the end of the journey, but the journey itself. So just sitting there next to each other, shoulder to shoulder, that's great for us. Sometimes I'll comment on, you know, Dawn's painting, or Sue will say something about my watercolors, or ask her, what are you journaling about? Or we can talk about anything else under the sun, but the important thing is that then we're all together, and that's a good thing, right? So I say again, make the change, break out of the mold, get out of maintenance mode, okay? So again, we are going to give you another set of sharing questions. In this talk, we made you all work hard so that we don't have to talk so much and you all don't want to hear us talking about. So these are the questions that we ask you to reflect on. So what aspects in my attitude to work or in my marriage do I need to change, right? How will that improve our couple relationship? Okay, so we give you about 5 minutes to reflect and write down.
Okay, I think most of us are done, right? Okay, so thank you for reflecting. So we move to the third consideration. We've done two. The first one was how we can use our gifts to be aware and of our own contributions to work and to help our spouse. That's the first one. Then we spoke about the second consideration, how actually differing attitudes towards work can impact our marriages, that may lead to friction, us to drift apart, or to even be just cruising at maintenance mode. And Ken shared some ideas, how we can break out of that mold and be the change that we really want for our spouse and our family. So the third consideration that we have is how to deal with conflicts by moving to compromise and harmonization. Okay, we're going to share a few ways, maybe how we can do this. So the first way to reduce conflict is to make a conscious decision to meet your spouse's needs. Okay, so we talk about it as in a decision made both of the head as well as a heart. So this phrase, love is a decision, some of you may have heard of it, is not just a woolly, rose-colored feeling, because it is making daily decisions to love your spouse. And how to do so is by turning ourselves fully to listen to our spouse with our heart for the main purpose of understanding their needs. Yeah? And it might mean that I may need to set aside some of my wants and desires so that I can be attentive, like for myself, to Ken. And when I do so, I'm actually life-giving to him. So I will share an example of an area of conflict that we had in our marriage and how when we made the decision to love, it helped us. So this revolves around the time spent with my parents, okay, my siblings, when we have meals or gatherings. Okay, all this is a bit before COVID, now it's very restricted. So as I'm staying with my in-laws, I assume that one set of the family visits are cut lah, because normally if you are living by yourself, you have to have in-laws and your other set of parents. So I thought no issue spending time with my family. However, this house in-laws visiting became a constant bugbear for us, and we had regular arguments whether or not this visit or that visit was needed, and can we reduce the time spent there or not. And I used to blame Ken for not being accommodating to my needs. So to make sure I got my way, I used to call the shots. I will make all the arrangements and then let him know, by the way, we're going to my mom's house or we're going to do this without consulting him. So you can gather that that's not very wise or not very loving of me. So making the decision to love meant that I was responsible for my feelings and reactions. So instead of remaining fixed in my assumptions and judgments that you're being, not loving, you don't want to, show me your love, I tried to keep an open mind and to listen to him from the heart. So through many dialogues and discussions, I discovered that actually deep down, Ken felt that when he was in the presence of my family, he was relegated to second place because, he was less important, because I would kind of like leave him to be by himself, and I would flit and be with my mom and dad or my siblings. So he felt second place. So when I understood his needs and how he felt, and I could make the decision to love him by a few ways, I said, okay, now I consult first. Because consulting means it can be a no, right? Because when you say yes means yes, I do it. But consulting means might not be a yes, but I realized that's his need. So I consulted him rather than just springing it upon him. And also I made the decision to say, shall we do fortnightly visits rather than weekly visits? So that's also a compromise. Okay, and of course prioritize his needs, realize that he felt reassured of my love for him. And also when I was in the family, I also made sure that I'm not leaving him by one corner, like a butterfly, and flying around everywhere except by his side. So I think when I made the decision, he felt loved and respected by me. And in a sense, the flip side, he became more generous and giving for my family because he knew how much I valued it.
So my decision to love Sue on the matter of visiting my in-laws came in the form of my considering Sue's needs on the matter. So she's a very relationships type of person, and I knew that she really treasured these times with her parents and her siblings. So I saw that she enjoyed herself very much when she was with them. So I made the decision to love and not to begrudge her on regularly going to visit my in-laws. And actually, I also made the decision to love myself by reflecting that actually when I go there, right, I actually do enjoy myself also. It's not as bad as I want to make it out to be, right? Okay, so just moving on to the next section, we want to compromise also by weaving our marriage into our work and therefore bring harmony into our relationship. So I'm not saying that this is a sneaky thing, but I think that, and it sort of looks as though it's not a very nice concept because you're, in a sense, cheating your boss by moving your marriage into your workplace, right? But if you're bosses out and you're listening to this, you must realize that a happy worker, a contented worker is actually a more efficient worker and will be more loyal to you, right? And you must give them a little bit of leeway, right? Okay. So we all know that compromise is needed for any relationship to work, and compromise brings harmony. So remember what you are working so hard for, who it is you're working so hard for when you're at work. So in other words, don't totally exclude thoughts or feelings about your marriage while you're at your workplace, right? Methods of weaving your marriage into your workplace can vary from couple to couple and workplace to workplace. So examples can include putting a family photo on your desk, right? And not behind you, but in front of you, or your home screen on your computer is a family picture, right? And also when you do reach home, then devote your full time and attention to them when you're at home. We know of many couples who are still connected by handphone to their work emails and constantly referring to answering work emails from home. I suggest try to put a barrier between work and home. And worse still, now when we are all working from home, remember that there is an end of work time and you should turn off the laptop at that time, right? For some people, you may find this a good way also. Some of us are able to text at work, and you can send short texts or short calls to your spouse at home or at the workplace. Remember also when you're at home, do spend time together talking about, as we said, daily appreciation, and other forms of more deep communication. Anybody knows what that is? What are those three emojis? I love you, right? Oh, so cutesy.
Okay, I know when Ken mentioned about turning off the laptops, actually we struggle. Okay, we're not there yet. We also struggle because sometimes just 5 more minutes, half an hour more, and I realize, hey, dinner bell has come and gone, and I have to make the priority, right? Finish it, get it done, or my family's waiting downstairs for me. So it is a struggle, but I think the first part is to be aware of it, because we all have our own particular situations of how to segregate that. Okay, so we'll continue by going to share some more strategies that can maybe diffuse tension and foster intimacy and trust. So one thing I want to share, right, is not that it has to be the big fireworks, let's go out for date nights. It can just be in the very simple, ordinary things at home, but it helps to connect you with your spouse. It's called connectable moments, right? So that you want to create this climate of tenderness and being responsive to each other. Okay, so we learned of this thing. We first laughed when we saw it. We said, okay, so it's a connect hug. A connect hug means that in the course of the day, hopefully we can come together 5 times and just hug for 1 minute. Okay, so we first said, why we do that? So we realized actually we are sexual beings, right? We have a body. When we touch, we feel intimate. It creates an emotional connection and also creates an atmosphere of a sexuality. As we refocus, basically it means I'm here for you and you are here for me. And it's a way to stay connected. So when we tried it, and we the first 10 seconds, hey, very funny, not letting go. Then 30 seconds. And strangely enough, the longer we hug, I could feel as though something is melting. You feel very connected, just skin to skin touch with your spouse. So it basically is to connect ourselves throughout the entire day. So I think if you're doing work from home now, That's the way you can connect. They come, let's have a connect hug, or after lunch, let's just, be, and that just syncs you back together as a couple. All right, the other one also was connect kiss. So, okay, it's not 1 minute kiss, only 10 seconds. So I said 1 minute is very long. So it's a 10-second kiss 2 times a day. And interesting, they suggested, when you normally say the kiss, you kiss? Before going off to work, usually, and coming back. So in a sense, it also sets the tone. Usually we give a quick kiss, okay, have a good day. But if we can just have a 10-second kiss, it actually realigns and refocuses to say to your spouse, I love you. Whilst you're at work, I'm still here, or I'm still thinking of you and our marriage. It just signals a different commitment to your spouse. Same thing when he comes back. I'm glad you're home. I'm looking forward to the time that we have in the evening together. So a 10-second kiss, a connect kiss. So these 2 things when we talk about the connect, hug, and kiss are just ways to draw out the romantic awareness of us being in love. Sometimes are like 2 ships in the night, You pass the house, you got the bread or not? Do you buy this? Is Dawn stuff seen too? We just pass, but we don't connect. So I think these little connectable moments help to remind us that we are a couple in love. Okay, maybe makes the work of marriage a bit more fun, not so drudgery. All right, so another one we shared here is we talk about daily appreciation tool. Another tool is also strongest emotion of the day, as this helps us to go deeper than just that simple question, what's for dinner? Paid the bills yet? Where are we going on Saturday? So it goes a bit, can you hear? Okay, better. So that sometimes end the day in the bedroom, I say, so today, how was your day? What's the strongest emotion? We don't normally share that. So he might share, today I really felt uplifted by something, or upset with my boss or something. And that is, again, a chance to foster intimacy. So actually we've enjoyed that. And certain things are surfaced that we never would have shared if this question didn't come up. A very quick, what's your strongest emotion? Okay, also take time to learn our spouse's love language. I think most may have heard of this. This is Love Languages by Dr. Gary Chapman. So we love in different ways. And my way of loving is different from my spouse's way. So I think Ken has put in the cactus 5 ways of words of affirmation, where you speak affirming words to your spouse. Some needs that. Acts of service, physical touch, giving gifts, and quality time. So if Ken likes gifts, but I don't like to receive gifts, and I never give him gifts, he probably won't really feel very loved. But if he loves gifts and he gives me gifts and I don't want gifts, I said, don't give me again, don't buy me chocolates. He will feel unloved. So, you can try to find your spouse's love language. So his is acts of service. So I know that whenever I help him out, volunteer to take this for him, make a cup of tea, he feels loved because I'm meeting his needs. So you can go online and you can find out, your own love languages if you've never heard of it.
Okay, so I think many of us are starved of holidays, right? How many of you want to go on holidays? I do, right? And how many of you are kind of scared of going on holidays, even though there are VTLs and all that? I'm kind of scared. Yeah, so I'm not going to go on holiday. So what do we do then? We're kind of stuck in this island, So the things that we can do to build our relationship is to do small things as a couple and as a family. We nowadays like to bring our dog out for a walk together, rather than, it's your turn to bring the dog out, or it's my turn to we bring the dog out together, and use that time to connect emotionally as well. We like to do couple dates. We do insist that, a couple date is something that shouldn't just be for a dating couple, but it should certainly also be for married couples. So it doesn't have to be a fantastic, let's go for a candlelight dinner at the Ritz-Carlton and spend $200. It can be appam breakfast at New Woodlands restaurant in Little India. So it can be the small things that you do as a couple. We have done kind of cheapskate. So we like to do things that are free, and there are many free things that you can do in Singapore. Do you all know which MRT station this is at? It's one of the new lines that opened up. This is the newest line that opened. It's the Thomson East Coast line. And in Mayflower Station, there are apparently I can't remember how many birds that, little bird statues littered all over the station. So one of the free things that we did was we went to the station and we did a sort of a treasure hunt to look and take pictures of all the little bird statues there. A lot of our museums are free as well. No, they're not. The bird statues, yeah. So we've gone to museums. That the one at the bottom right is us at the Singapore National Gallery of Singapore, which is free. We've also spent our Singapore Rediscover vouchers and gone to Gardens by the Bay. I think now it's the Christmas one. That was the tulips display. We've done a bit out of the ordinary things like walking down Emerald Hill. We've also gone to Bukit Brown Cemetery to do a walk. And it's not scary at all, actually. We kind of worried that it was scary at first. But then when we went there, we saw lots of people jogging up and down. And, they didn't seem to be floating. So I think it was really quite safe. Just remember, bring lots and lots of mosquito repellent. Okay. The other thing, so a lot of the things can be done as a family if you're just a little bit creative and find, where you can go in this small island. And I don't think we've done many things still. There are many exhibitions that change all the time. We make sure that at home, we have protected family time. So all meals must be had together as a family. That's something that we insist on. And when we're at the dinner table or the lunch table, then the handphone is not with us so that, that is not a source of distraction.
Okay, so we continue by looking at how we can harmonize. We had conflict, compromise, and harmonize by building couple spirituality. Right? So we always think holiness means piety. Yeah? Pray, pray, pray. Actually, it doesn't. It's basically how we live out our sacrament of holy matrimony daily. And basically, holiness in marriage is being the best person, the best spouse for the person you're married. That is holiness. And also for your children. So you can think about things to do to build couple spirituality. Of course, there's spiritual retreats. It can be ministry work or praying together. So for me, I'm more of an introvert. An earlier part of my marriage, it's always Ken who says, come, let's do this, let's do that. So he was the impetus to say, join the choir. Okay, so I joined the choir. And his enthusiasm, and zest encouraged me to step out of my comfort zone. And it eggs me on, I think, to grow a bit more. So eventually we became involved in family ministries like Marriage Encounter, Couple Mentor. And I think through these experiences, I learned that our couple spirituality is not so much what we do to serve God, but how we can build up being spiritually, plugged into what God wants of us, what's His will for us. So we talked about being the best couple we can be, and from that, hopefully, we are radiating and living out God's desire for our marriage. Okay, we try to weave in our couple spirituality as a family, grace before meals. In the morning, even though it's very rushed, before they go off to school and work, we just try to do the gospel reading of the day. I know Dawn is not very keen, but some days I skip it and she'll say, faster, do the reading. So to her, it's still a routine that she said, I would like to hear. Okay, so we do it. We try to end the day with family prayer, and a couple of years ago, we found out about this Bible adventure timeline, which really was a bonus for us as we journeyed together. Yeah. So living out our couple spirituality every day also means embracing the attitude and behavior of being willing to change so that we can love each other more. So when we argue, and sometimes I'm not ready to reconcile, and Ken makes the first move to come back into relationship, I can experience our spirituality by receiving his apology, even though I'm not quite ready. Yeah? Or when I patiently clear and wash up after him or his plates on the dining table, I'm being life-giving, because, lah. Yeah. So, yeah. So, yes. Yeah. So when you love me also, you also clear, lah. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So these are called the ways we live out our sacramental love each day. So it doesn't become drudgery. It's like, okay, it's an act of our love. And one thing I learned recently, which I cling on to, is praying for our spouses. I never realized how powerful that was. Because we always think that we must change them, I'm the one that must change you. Live with me, I must change you. Actually, it's not. I just pray really much that God puts the people, the situations in the lives of the person who means the most to us so that they become receptive to hear his voice. So I think interceding for your spouse, if you haven't, is something that, we can try to and just lift up to say, God has made the spouse I love for a purpose. May he, know his message through whoever comes into his life. Yep. Okay, your turn.
Okay, so the last bit, really, one of the last bits, is to harmonize by communicating at a deeper level. And that sounds a bit highfalutin, isn't it? We need to, well, speaking from a choir perspective, right? When you sing, you need to sing in harmony, right? And you need to learn those melody as well as the harmony. But that's a tall order if you don't have the skills as to how to communicate at a deeper level. There are many programs that offer invaluable tools to forge deeper and more effective communication between couples. So here's where we sell the marriage encounter koyok to you all, okay? As we've said, we are familiar with Marriage Encounter, ME. We are also familiar with Couple Mentor Journey because we present both of these. There are also very good other programs that help to... Sorry, okay. So yes, okay, a lot of unmarried. So Couple Mentor Journey is very good for those couples who are engaged and who are going to get married. This augments your experience at EE or MPC, right? Yeah, and Marriage Encounter is for those who are already married for a couple of years. So these programs do teach you how to communicate at a deeper level. Marriage Encounter has been around in the world for about 70 years already, and in Singapore for 40-something years. So it's certainly not something that has been a fad and started and died off, which means that it is something that really has great benefits for a lot of couples. In fact, when we present and we talk to the couples, many couples will say, we should have come earlier in our marriage, and then we would have learned how to communicate better. So during a Marriage Encounter weekend, you will learn lots of communication tools, communicating at a deeper level. And we talked earlier to you about leading the change, that you should be the one leading the change. So maybe it will be good that today you took a good look at yourselves and say, yes, I will be the one to sign up for a Marriage Encounter weekend for the sake of my marriage, or for a Couple Mentor Journey experience as well. All right? Okay. So we end up with another activity for you. This is the last one for you. So we've asked you to consider the 5 C's, isn't it? The 5 secular C's. But what about the other C's? These are the softer ones. What about your children, your church, charity, community, couplehood, and certainly contentment? Where do these fit into your life, in addition to the secular 5 C's? Are there any other priorities that you may have? So maybe you could take some time now to replot your circle using the second circle and try to fit as many of these in as you can in terms of how important they are to you.
Okay, hopefully you have got most of your thoughts, reflected down, and you can always go back and replot the pie, if you like to. So we come to the conclusion, the wrap up for today. After all that we've shared, we wanted to just mention that the most important thing to talk about balance. Okay, so balance normally takes 3 things, like the couple balancing on the railway track or anyone balancing on a tightrope. 3 things: you need to prepare, you need to be intentional, and as a couple, need to make joint decisions together. Okay, so these are the keys to create and to hopefully maintain the best marriage, family, or work balance for your own family. So we know that many couples experience a lot of strong forces today, pulling them away from the priority they would like to have for their marriages and their families. So the first step, if you don't prepare or plan, these forces will prevail. It's like, you want to exercise, when I make exercise plan, okay, I know what I'm going to do, when I'm going to do, and I'll try my best to keep to it, right? So similarly for our spousal relationship, that same plan has to sort of take shape, a little bit of taking shape, so that otherwise the time and energy for your spouse and family will just get eroded or evaporates with everything else that comes, along our way. The second thing we talked about was balance, all right? So the balancing is a process, and it's not something static. So something that about balancing, right? You can't just say, I've got it, and this is the perfect one. It always needs to be tweaked here and there. So there will be big decisions like selecting your career, your jobs, even your parenting roles and responsibilities. These all give opportunities for balance. But the real task of balancing actually takes place weekly, daily, even hour to hour. Yeah? Because this is where spouses will hold the line to protect their couple or their family time. Or again, it will allow it to evaporate when other priorities just wash up. Okay, so that is again talking about process. And the third process of balance means that you must and can and must adjust, okay, as required. Because no decision, plan, or approach needs to be permanent. If it doesn't work for you, it's not satisfying, your spouse can reconsider again, and you can make changes and tweak it. So we talk about a tightrope, acrobat, constantly balancing, left or right to ensure that he keeps on the rope. So we hope that today you have some idea or some better thoughts and reflections how to try to work at this, for a spousal relationship. And we've enjoyed being here with you. The time has flown. We thought, don't talk so long, but we actually have enjoyed being here with you. So we're going to end off here, Dan? Yeah.
All right. As she kind of did my thank you speech there. So thank you very much for coming. We are happy to take questions and comments and criticisms even if you have any. We also ask you, could you please, you can keep the books, okay? But can we have the pens and the crayons back?
We're still using.
We will reuse them. Huh?
Any questions?
Any questions or comments?
If not, you can join the rest.
Okay, if there are no comments, thank you once again. We do hope that you will enjoy the rest of the festival as well. Right here in the cathedral, level 3 is very nice. Level 1 is also very nice. The Cana art exhibition is fabulous. We went yesterday. We were very moved by all the paintings and the artwork that was displayed. And I believe there's a relic of the real cross at St. Peter's and Paul Church. Sure. Yeah, I think so. I saw it on Facebook today, so I think you can go in. But yesterday we tried to go for confession, and it was a 2.5 hour wait. So, which means you get to spend 2.5 hours with God. Nowadays you can't go to church very often, right? So, yeah, okay. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great day.